4 days of ferocious Syrian government raids on the rebel-held enclave in eastern Ghouta have killed more than 200 civilians. Syrian government troops have since Monday waged an intense air campaign on eastern Ghouta, the only significant opposition pocket near the capital Damascus. These are live visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi arriving in Amman. This is the first leg of Prime Minister's West Asia tour. These are live visuals we are broadcasting from Amman, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just landed. This is the first leg of Modi's West Asia tour. He's slated to later go on to Palestine. It will be the first time an Indian Prime Minister will be visiting Palestine. These are latest visuals of Prime Minister Modi just landing in Amman. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived in Amman. This is the first leg of his West Asia tour, where he is slated to visit Palestine next. Prime Minister Modi had created history by becoming the first Prime Minister from India to visit Israel last year. He is set to create history again by becoming the first Indian PM to visit Palestine. Joining me live on the broadcast is WION's international correspondent Daniele Pagani. Daniele, Prime Minister Modi has landed in Amman. Talk to us about the significance of his visit to Jordan.
Indeed, the Prime Minister has landed in Amman, the capital city of Jordan, which is a very significant stopover. He will be meeting His Majesty, the King of Jordan. Remember that Jordan and the royal family of Jordan is in charge, so to say, of the holy shrines of Islam inside the Palestinian territories. It means that the safety and security of all the Muslims who wish to pray and to visit the holy shrines depends exactly on the kingdom. So meeting the king for the Prime Minister is very important, because in order to know exactly what happens in Palestine, what kind of mood is there in Palestine, both on the ground and among the political class of Palestine, the king is the first person you have to ask. He can absolutely give a very insightful opinion to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And also, Jordan is a place, to add a lighter note, Jordan is a place which is very much well known to Indians. Millions of Indian citizens visit the beauty of Jordan, Petra, so to say, every year. So there is a lot to talk, there is a lot of cooperation that can be done. Jordan also is a place which is absolutely in favor of exchanging agricultural technologies, and absolutely one of, I would say, the most stable countries in the Middle East. So there is a lot to talk. There will be insightful conversations happening with His Majesty, who is also providing for the security of the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, during his travel from Amman directly to Ramallah.
It's over to my colleague Surya Gangadharan. Surya, take it from here.
Well, I think the visit to Amman is important. As Daniele mentioned, Jordan is among the most stable countries in that part of the world. And they've had the Hashemite dynasty, which has ruled that country for so many years. The Indian involvement in Jordan is rather limited in terms of trade and other issues. I believe the main export that Jordan has for India is phosphates. But nevertheless, India sees Jordan as a key player in that part of the world. It's a moderate country. There are significant populations, minorities of Christians there. And as you're aware, Jordan has become a country where a lot of refugees have flown in from Syria, from Iraq, from many parts of the world. There was a perception some years ago that the influx of so many refugees would destabilize this country. But credit to King Abdullah, he has held issues together, he has held people together, been a unifying force, and ensured that Jordan remains stable and a kind of an oasis of peace in a disturbed and very unstable part of the world.
And I believe, Surya, you had a few questions for Daniele too.
Yeah, Daniele, I'd just like to talk to you about what is the general sense one gets in Amman? Is there an awareness that the Indian Prime Minister has come? Is there any posters up there? What do you see?
Basically, since a few days ago I was in Amman, in the city of Amman, and asking around, there was awareness, but there was not the awareness of the Prime Minister of India meeting with the King. The people knew that he was transiting from Amman and going to Jordan, and that was positively considered because remember that many Jordanians have actually Palestinian origins, so Jordan is the place where nearly all the Palestinians who escaped on the eastern side of Palestine took refuge when it was time to leave, abandon their country. So many Jordanians are Palestinians, many knew about the Prime Minister coming. They were not aware about the meeting with His Majesty, but they were aware about the fact that Jordan was playing an important role in this dehyphenation of the visit of India when it comes to Israel and Palestine, which is considered widely as a message of peace, a message of tranquility, and a message especially of independence from India. It is very much appreciated that the Prime Minister of India is not subject to international policy, so he's not subject to the US policy in West Asia, he's not subject to the Iranian policy in West Asia, he's not subject to any policy as of now. This is what is being most appreciated. Even in Amman it was very much appreciated, but also here on the ground in Palestine where I am, people have very much appreciated this gesture. They are a bit worried because they need to understand if India is again solidly, truly considering Palestine as an independent entity, as an independent state, but considering the life that they live, this is absolutely understandable. And anyway, the decision of the Prime Minister not to travel to Israel is being very much welcomed and is sending a strong message to West Asia. The message that India is independent, pursuing its own purposes in West Asia, but without a political agenda like other states are doing.
Daniele, since you brought up this issue of dehyphenation, Palestine and Israel, let me ask you, there is a general sense, a kind of buzz in that part of the world that countries like Saudi Arabia are building ties with Israel, perhaps under the radar, but they are doing so. And Jordan, we know, has had a long-standing relationship with Israel. Tell us something about this.
Yes, there is. I would say that Palestinians, both within the government and on the streets, are a bit worried. They feel in this moment of time a little bit isolated. They are witnessing the increasing ties. As you said very well, it's, would say, underground phenomenon as of now, increasing ties and warming ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel, but not only, also between between Israel and Egypt. So yes, they are worried. They feel isolated. So this is why the visit of the Indian Prime Minister in this very moment of time is very important. It comes at a time when Palestinians feel isolated and they truly need to understand who's going to support them, and they have a lot of faith in India. Hardly you meet people on the ground here in Palestine having a bad opinion of India or having or being truly worried. Of course, they are looking very closely about the increasing ties between India and Israel, but I also know very much that this is not something political, but it's something that is business. India is buying defense security systems from Israel, which is one of the largest suppliers. This doesn't mean that India necessarily will support politically whatever Israel wants. India is an independent big country, one of the oldest democracy, and it is also absurd to think that a country like India can actually bow to other states. policies. So there is a lot on the ground, mixed feelings. People are worried, people are very curious to see what will happen when the Prime Minister Narendra Modi will reach Palestine. Certainly the dehyphenation is very much appreciated, as it is appreciated the fact that the Prime Minister of India as a first thing will visit the Arafat Museum and the Arafat tomb. Remember that this is a way to pay tribute to a history of struggle against what Palestinians call an occupation.
Daniel, is there a sense in that part of the world that a country like India can perhaps play a role in bringing some of the combatant groups there in that part of the world together, like for instance, maybe even mediating some kind of peace between the Arabs and the Israelis? Is this feasible or even relevant given the fact that the superpowers have a major presence there?
Well, if you ask me if this is feasible, this is not a $1 million but a $100 million feasible. Everything is feasible, but this is a sensitive area. To answer the other question, yes, absolutely yes. There is a sense, especially here in Palestine, within the government of Palestine, that India, being a neutral player when it comes to West Asia, having neutral relations, having independent relations, and not playing politics with military boots on the ground in the East area, can actually be definitely one of the peace brokers. This is a Herculean task. Many have tried, many have failed, but perhaps if there is one country today who can pitch in West Asia from an independent perspective, that is India. And yes, Palestinians, especially Palestinians, are very, very much convinced that India should play a role in the mediation between them and the Israelis. On the Israeli side of the conflict, well, the situation is a little bit more sensitive. Israelis are not on the same page. They don't see India as a political player. They are very strongly convinced that the only player who can broker eventually a peace deal between the two countries is Israel itself. So there is this difference, but yes, definitely the Palestinian government, the Palestinian people do see India as a positive player when it comes into the conflict between the Arabs and the Israelis in this beautiful, sacred and troublesome land.
Do you see the possibility of diplomatic ties being established between Israel and maybe Saudi Arabia, maybe Jordan, formal diplomatic ties?
Well, when it comes to the Kingdom of Jordan and Israel, as you know, the embassy of Israel was closed, actually was made to close by the Kingdom of Jordan after a very tragic incident. The embassy is on its way to reopen slowly, so ties are getting back on track. When it comes to Saudi Arabia, well, we are talking of a change of historical proportions. We are talking of two countries which did not even recognize each other, the very existence, the dignity of the existence, the possibility to exist each other. So this is going to take time. Certainly we have very many signs. For instance, some of the Saudi Arabian businessmen are getting Israeli visas in order to talk business in Israel. The Ministry of Transportation of Israel some months ago said that he is also ready to consider the possibility of giving a visa to the newly elected Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Egypt also is inside this picture and trying also to kind of jump on this phenomenon. But if we think that we will see this happening faster, no, that is not going to happen. As I said, it is a change of historical proportion. But signs of this happening are definitely there, definitely on the ground, and neither Israel nor Saudi Arabia are denying this. They are both considering the possibility of restoring their ties.
It's a bit ironic, isn't it, Daniele, that India and Israel have such close ties, yet Israel does not see a role for India as a political player in that part of the world, whereas the Arab countries like Jordan and Saudi Arabia perhaps do tend to see some kind of a role for India.
This is going to be an enormous challenge for Prime Minister Narendra Modi or for whoever will succeed him eventually. The Middle East or West Asia is definitely an area full of games of balance, I would say. every time one touches a stone, another stone moves. So it's very, very difficult to find a balance. The positive side of India is that, yes, India is a partner in business with Saudi Arabia. Yes, India is a partner in business with Iran. So India is taking some stances here or there, but it's still, again, politically talking, I would say the most neutral international player that can pitch in. Pitching in the Middle Eastern scenario, it's, again, I repeat, a Herculean challenge. It means an enormous work of diplomacy, a very delicate work of diplomacy. I think India is capable of doing that. It needs really to decide to put an enormous effort, and not for 1 month, not for 1 year, for the years to come, and for the governments to come also. Let's see if Prime Minister Narendra Modi is willing to initiate this process. Certainly, this first visit and the ways through which he is managing this kind of visit are positive signs. But it's very difficult, and from positive signs to actual facts in the Middle East, there is a lot of distance.
Daniele, thank you. That was very interesting. And Raghavendra, over to you.
Thank you so much, Surya Gangadharan and Daniele Pagani, for that fascinating conversation.